Welcome again to Wickerson Studios. It's early morning and people are still asleep, so I'm just going to be a little quiet here. I've got another structure that I've made, as you can see it rotating on the front view and right view, and I can put it to the top view. And it's a system of variable pipes that are joined by a spiral staircase. And it is fairly iterative, or it does loop, but I have to customize it each time so I can control the chambers of each corridor as it goes down by making these little chambers that exist throughout it. The whole thing itself is Boolean and made as a difference through a structure, so it will sit within this kind of, let me jump over here, it will sit within this kind of realm or sphere, as you can see, underground, where you can put landscapes above it, but you're generating basically what's happening inside underground. And the entire script is not that long, even though it's pretty big to look at. What I have done, which I think is interesting, is I will put this off for a second, and I will activate the first flag of Duchame. So this is the first kind of organization that's run by, pretty much run by that which is negative, and there it is. It's a little twisted. I'm not sure why my top view rotated there. Oh, it's because it was on turntable. So I can straighten that back out. But the script is fairly simple. Rectangles made, finding center. I'll just stop that, leave the turntable, hopefully, and you can see that I've basically made, this should come up a little better than that, rectangle, the center's found, and, I've got it being selected. Well, that's interesting, it's doing that, but should just be showing what I've selected once I baked it. No. Either way, I've made a rectangle, found its center point, moved it in the X and Y direction, dispatched it, drew a line between it, and then I've taken a scaling factor and reduced it, moved it up and down on the Y, and I've produced the simple bars of pipe and put on round caps. So that's the symbol of Duchame. You're going to see quite a bit. Enough said with that. I'm just going to take that off and disable it, and we'll go back to basically what the structure is of. I think the perspective view is probably best to appreciate that. This is the outer area, which is extruded through it, and this is the inner area. Now the script is fairly simple, and we're in 3 minutes, so I better get moving. What I've done is I've made, I guess it's best to get to the end, I've made these units that I can variable pipe. So this one's off, and I have it disabled, but the whole system that's done again and again and then has to be oriented to itself basically is a series of numbers that is, it's probably best to just, the test script was here at the top, so it's always good to do a test script. And then I started to compile it. So if you look at it, it's a range. It's it comes from a domain. It goes through sine. It's a very similar script. It has an amplitude of changing that. So if I play with that, I can play with the Z factor of how far down. And we're only really working with this top section from here to the first spiral staircase. Actually, we're just working from this line, which is a sine curve from above. And maybe you could appreciate that if I take a look here. And I think it's going to have to be a little easier to take this one off, and then we can kind of look at things from the top and the sides and see what's going on. Except that's a pretty good rotation of perspective happening on every single one of my windows now. It must have defaulted to that when I was in my turntable tool, or I did something. But either way, you can see we've got each structure from each angle. We're only dealing with this kind of top squiggle curve in this one. So if I want to play with that shape, I can come in here and I can start to play with. That was the amplitude going up and down. You can see it in the perspective window up here. You can start to play with the length of that curve, and you're really going to, and in doing that, you're altering the whole thing on the top. You're playing with kind of how the path will meander and wander. You can have different, you can really kind of sign it up and make some crazy equations. If you wanted a pretty straight chamber to start, as somebody entered, they'd come right down. And really, it's just a variable pipe placed onto a curve. But the variable pipe I've controlled by many parameters that go 0 through 1. And then at one point, I give a little bulge in here. So you see this little bulge that's right here. I can bulge that up and make that even bigger if I wanted that chamber to be a little thicker. And if I did drop in water or dropped in a plane inside, you'd see I could actually capture some ripples and make a pretty good interior in there. You have to imagine kind of entering that area, pretty much entering it through this kind of corridor as it goes down. That would be a straight shot, and you'd end up here. This is actually flipped. Yeah, from the top. You'd enter, and then you'd come down the next spiral staircase, and you'd repeat. You'd simply I could have done an iteration, done this like as many times as I wanted, a hoop snake or something, a loop, but it would have been the same chamber attaching itself. What I've done is taken a small script of the spiral staircase right here. So the staircases are iterative, and they do happen each and every time. So if we take a look at the spiral staircase here at the end, I can start to play with how many steps are in there, how squat I want that staircase to be, how wide I want that inner chamber. You've got an ability to play with how many steps are there, and you can flash it out a bit if you wanted wide steps to be carved out. So we're making little effects on this and playing with that staircase in different patterns. And this is kind of interesting little screwed parametric model that I got from online. I think it was Daniel Christop's example, which I really liked. Anyway, that's it. You can make it spiral several times. You can shorten the amount of steps that go through it. You can have 1 turn, 1.5 turns, whatever you want. But like I said, that's going to come up the same on every single level if you change that, because that's been brought into the script 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, which is why we have 4 tiers. So let's go to the second chamber coming down here. Pull back, and we're definitely looking at this loop coming around. I can play with that by adjusting the depth of that. If I wanted it to drop very fast, I could have it drop right down like that. It'd be quite a slope. Then I could play with, well, that brings it, that actually plays with the curve itself. You see we're straightening it out again with that tool right there. And we're actually playing with, yeah, blowing it up and doing something crazy to it as a corridor. So if we wanted a winding corridor, I'm going to have to have a few steps. And it is below, so it's not really hitting itself. And if these capes did hit themselves, that's why I lowered them each time on the z-axis. Even if they did hit themselves or I did multiple passages, they would just be corridors through corridors. So that's good enough for that one. And I can change the variable pipe again. What's nice here is you can variable pipe, you just hit a random 10%. But if you hit a random 100%, you just blow that thing up. And you kind of ruin any pattern that you maybe had. So if this was a bulge at the end, and then it got thin, you've got to think of this as a 0 through 1 reparameterized curve, and how I would make a bulge. So if I wanted a bulge in the middle, you can see I'm doing this. It's kind of, would be nice to link this up with the graph mapper, and then you can play with some pretty interesting graphs to make it very smooth. But I think a cave can be jagged and cut out and engineered, so you can have this kind of strange pattern. So it's kind of an ugly little grotesque kind of worm growing thing. I have an ant on my wall. That's not good. Basically, so we'll zoom back out. We've gotten through the first chamber and the second chamber, about in this section. Once again, I dropped in another spiral staircase that would flow down through there. So the spiral staircase, if I hit this, I think you'd see it. Now something's up with maybe a bug today in the program. So let's just keep going, meandering. We've kind of come down to this level. What's this next passage? I'm not going to adjust this one. It's a pretty straight shot that comes across here. Actually, this kind of boring straight shot, so I'm going to actually zap it a bit. There we go, give it a bit of a curve and a twist. Comes around like this and falls through, and you can see the chamber's kind of fat, pudgy, then gets thin, kind of like a bug's leg. But there must be something that's making that buggy. It's this little data right here. I can flatten that out. So you can really control in a gene pool whatever you want to do in these things. And I haven't been playing with this. It's down here, and it's the rotation of those chambers. So each one has the possibility to rotate and pivot on its leg whenever I want. And if you're looking down at top, you can kind of see how that influences your whole map. So it's kind of a fun thing. And it's fun to build these caves. I mean, they're totally random. They do it in kind of a stairwell. You can change that, mix it up a bit, pop in just straight chutes and such. But you can see this one's kind of getting pretty interesting. It'd be fun to navigate. It's not really a cave because it kind of bulbouses out. But trying to think of it made organically or with water. And then the last stage, if I didn't like that where it was positioned from top view, I could pivot that one around, maybe come right back under. So I could have actually this staircase continue. If I line this one up with this one right here, I technically could have a pretty interesting staircase that could continue as a straight shot. If I wanted to superimpose another and stretch it out or do multiple ones along a linear array, this one could technically, if I paired up my data, shoot straight down. That you'd have a choice to wander through the caves or take a spiral staircase all the way down. And I guess that's it. It's an interesting project. I'm going to go on to this one, making it visible again. It's always fun. And try and choose a, like I said, I got it all my patterns for some reason. There it is. So I'm kind of kind of cool to be in the escape. I'm going into the world. And if I click that one, I'll see my blue kind of hidden within that underground structure, and the highlights of the verticals is pretty nice. So there's my chamber and my random cave system for the it's called Angif. So, and the Angif itself was a place, location on the map. There I am at the top, all paired up with my kid's hands. It's a little troll. The leader has a name, no real rank, but it's the first place that actually, like I said, I linked this off to making the flags for each one of these. So enabling on and then going here and previewing on. Let's just take a look at that, and there we go. There's your original flag for Angif, and that'll be the first one. Boy, it's kind of small. Oh, not really working for me today, but it's early morning. Here it comes. There's the Angif kind of symbol and flag. Alright, thanks for watching. Long video, long script, but fairly iterative and repetitive.